Hello and welcome to this audio commentary for Fatal Attraction. I am Omar Moore. I'm a film critic and a member of the San Francisco Bay Area Film Critics Circle. There's this 75th anniversary logo for Paramount Pictures, and this is the audio commentary, unofficial though it may be, for Fatal Attraction, but it's an audio commentary, so thank you very much for listening to it. I hope you have synced up the beginning of this film to the start of the audio commentary and vice versa. The names of the cast of actors is being paraded before you. We've seen Michael Douglas and Glenn Close. Anne Archer has flashed across the screen as well. The title, Fatal Attraction. And this film was a real phenomenon in 1987 when it was released. And we see Fred Gwynne, by the way, and Stuart Pankin among the names as well. The late, great Fred Gwynne, casting directors there, Bremen and Hopkins. And the sunset across Manhattan, Maurice Jarre, the great composer's name there, and costume designer Alan Mirojnik. And you see the sunset there and the water towers across a part of Manhattan, probably the Upper East Side, could be the Upper West. And we slowly transition into the home of someone, and we'll find out who they are. But Fatal Attraction was a tremendous phenomenon in 1987. It's not to say that it was the greatest film on earth, but it was a film that was highly popular, very much talked about. By the way, Sherry Jansing, you just saw her name, she went on to become the CEO at Paramount, the first female studio head, to the best of my recollection. The film was a massive hit. Released in September of 1987, Fatal Attraction, I think, went on to make around $125 million plus in North America, US and Canada, and made money all over the world. It was the talking point of a lot of discussions around men and women, sex, fidelity, marriage. But I don't think the film, obviously, oddly enough, and we see comic relief moments here, with Nickelodeon at the center of it there with the different colored paint. But I don't think the film takes all these things as seriously as I think the film should. Because I think the film, and I am going to be critical of Fatal Attraction sometimes because I have a love-hate relationship with the movie. And I really do. I'll just say that right off the top so that you know what you are walking into when you listen to this. There's things about Fatal Attraction I like, but there's so much more that I don't. And I do think it's important to do commentaries for films that you like and films also that you do not like. And I am much more, I think now, looking back at the film, at a dislike of it than I was in 1987, even though I disliked a lot of it back then. We have already seen Michael Douglas and we've already seen Anne Archer. There is Michael Douglas and there is Anne Archer. And they are a married couple in New York City, and there is their daughter, played by Ellen Hamilton Latson. And there they are, they're this kind of prototypical, well-to-do, upper middle class, white family living on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I mean, that's what they are in 1987. So you can see that they're getting ready because you can look at them and they're all wearing white. Every one of them is wearing white. And it goes with the white walls, kind of this bland, vanilla existence in a way, which I think is kind of metaphorical in some ways, that things are going to get spiced up and not in the right kind of way. There's lots of ways to spice up a marriage, but contrary to a lot of people who might disagree with me, infidelity ain't really one of them. I don't buy this notion, by the way, that, it can rejuvenate a spark in your marriage if you cheat. I'm not one of those believers. Now, you may be, you may not be. But that's not the subject entirely, at least, of this particular commentary. So now everyone is assembled at a book party, I think it is, as I remember. And the Fatal Attraction is a product of its time in the 1980s. You know, it was the era of Reagan in the United States, the me generation decade, so to speak. It was about you get yours, I'll get mine, and that's really what it was about. And some people would say it still is about in terms of the United States. But there's a lot of gaggery and joking in some of these scenes, and you see the neck brace here on the gentleman that's just walked past, and then they make a joke about it. And sex starts to swirl in the air almost from the very off. You know, well, he's having sex with his wife. That's how he did his neck in. And so everybody's having a laugh about that. And there's a lot of that kind of joking around that goes around in the movie. But Fatal Attraction was so talked about because of the way it presented these issues. And I don't think, quite frankly, that they were presented in the serious enough way. But the film isn't about that. It's about, in my view, painting a picture of the consequences of an affair and about how that's demonizing a character in the process. And there, again, there's a number of racist things in the movie, you know, this kind of mocking of Asian culture, or a perceived stereotype of Asian culture, shall I say. And the white characters spare no expense in doing it. They do it all the time, at least 2 or 3 times in the movie, and I'll point some of them out. I don't think a lot of Asian persons would find any of this to be funny. In fact, I don't think a lot of people who may be black, white, or otherwise find some of this to be any funny at all. And it's kind of this joking and mocking, so-called joking, mocking Asian people, you know, by Adrian Lyne, a white male British filmmaker from, I think, from England, particularly in the UK. And I think he's making a statement here himself, even if he doesn't realize it. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. And here is Glenn Close playing Alex so masterfully. And Glenn Close should have won the Oscar for this performance. The character was not written well enough, and it was Glenn Close who even gave the character life. And Glenn Close had to do a lot of fighting, by the way, to keep the integrity of that character. Fighting with the director, they had to do reshoots on this movie, particularly the ending, which of course by now you all know if you're watching this and listening to me. Hopefully that you do know that about the ending and you've seen this movie. If not, stop the commentary right now. So here's Ann Archer as Beth, and she is telling her husband Dan, played by Michael Douglas, the jig is up, you gotta go. And of course Alex susses that out. And I love this shot here after we see how Glenn Close looks away there. And I like the shot that goes back to Glenn Close and the space she has in that moment as a character to reflect on what it is she's just experienced. Right here. Just takes a drag of that cigarette too. I think that's just beautiful because there's some different feelings going on in that brief moment. It's very, very subtle, but you can see it. Here's the thing that I think plays to the audience to justify the cheating, I think. You've got to take the doggy for the walk. You can't come in and sleep with me. You've got to go and take a doggy for a walk. And that's what Beth is telling Dan. Dan gets up. He's kind of ticked off that he has to still walk the dog, right? So he's come back in now, and he's coming back into the house, to the apartment, having walked the dog. And he's done his duties, dog walking duties, and then he comes back into the bedroom here, and hey presto, roadblock number 2 has been put in. Oh, it's the daughter. Oh, just for tonight, honey. Sorry, you're not getting any. I mean, sorry to be crude. That's just the fact. That is 2 little devices put in there by either James Dearden or the director Adrian Lyne that I think genuflect to the audience that they should automatically now have a subtle sense of sympathy or empathy for Dan because he's not able to have sex with his wife. That sounds very patriarchal, doesn't it? But there is, I think, this sense of empathy that's already being built for a character that we still don't know, at least, 10 minutes in who he really is yet. We don't really know. Daddy's gonna be all alone. Well, you know, I love the moment there where Beth says, "Don't forget to walk the dog." Yeah, he hasn't forgotten that from 2 minutes ago. Oh dear. So there they go. They're going off, Beth and Ellen, who, as I say, is in real life Ellen Hamilton Latson. And they're going off upstate to visit Beth's parents. And here comes Dan walking into the room. And look, again, the sex angle is going to come back here. There's going to be a mockery of the man wearing the neck brace. His name is Bob in the movie. And there's only one woman in the film here right now in this scene. And another woman is going to join her. That will be Alex in a few moments. And now look, here's the joke. Oh, maybe you can tell us what happened, Bob, to your neck. And everybody knows it was because he did his neck in. What kind of sex was he having to do his neck in with his wife? I don't know. But anyway, I'll leave that for you to guess. So Alex has joined them now, and they are sitting around a table. Alex, this is the second time that Alex and Dan are meeting. This time, though, it's in a work environment, so they have to be more circumspect. And again, this notion of sex and affairs and infidelity comes in, right? This time it's about a congressperson. It's a part of the novel, a congressman, who is the subject of the novel. And apparently the book publisher is being sued for libel. And, you know, the question is, does the author have an affair with this congressman or not? And it's supposed to be a fictionalized version of a real thing. And you've got the Glenn Close character saying, yeah, but she had affairs with loads of politicians. It's kind of like she's talking autobiographically about her own character. And there's a knowingness about how she says it and the way she looks as she says this that just kind of tips the audience off, I think. And here's the nonverbal communication of the sexual possibility. It's very subtle. Food and sex are very deeply intertwined. Some people would say food is sex. There is something deeply intimate about eating. And again, there's a moment of that here, as you just saw, with the little joke about the cream cheese or whatever it is on the nose of the Dan character, and how Alex just points that out and gives him a smile and a knowing look. And now here's another anti-Asian, this kind of racist swipe here that gets thrown at Asian persons here, right? He's having a problem opening the umbrella, is Dan, and here comes the windswept and the relaxed Alex, and here's what she says. Was it made in Taiwan? Yeah, it's like, what if it was made in America? Would she have said that? I don't think so. If it was made in the USA, she would not have said, made in the USA. Was it made in the USA? Can you ever expect that to happen in a movie? No, not in Fatal Attraction. I know. I'm talking about all these things. Politics do get connected with everything. And I actually host a podcast and run a podcast called the Politicrat Daily Podcast. And I talk about politics a lot there. And if you'd like to hear the more political version of things from yours truly, you know where to go. It's on a number of platforms. But politics is connected to the movies, and you can't deny that. Politics influences everything. The decisions that get made on Fatal Attraction, the fact that they had to reshoot it for the reasons they had to reshoot it for, the fact that Glenn Close had to fight like a demon, no pun intended at all, to get her character to look halfway like a character and not like a cardboard cutout that I think she actually is. It's all politics. It's all politics. There's issues of sexism and racism and misogyny and white male heterodominance. And these things are at play in this movie and in pretty much every movie, on and off camera and behind camera. Right? Whether you like it or not, it's the truth. I love this scene for two reasons. One, because it's the first time that we see Glenn Close's character start to dictate the terms of things. This is the third time they've met. Well, really, technically the second, because they are alone here now. The last time it was in the work environment. The first time it was in a crowded bar at a party, at the party that they were at, book party. This time is the first time they're actually really meeting, actually, when you think about it. And she's just getting right down to it. Are you discreet? And she's just getting right to the point. Dan is telling her everything about himself, and we know more about Dan now than we do about her. We don't know anything about Alex's backstory. We don't know anything about that. And that's down to the screenwriter, James Dearden. We don't know anything about any of that with her. We don't know who she is. We just know that she is a woman. We know that she's a white female. We know that she is, I think, I would call her an alluring person. He's handsome and she's very attractive. She seems to have what I would call a power suit on from the 1980s. Somebody who is used to perhaps being in control of environments. She's a career person, we can tell. Not a career person. I shouldn't say that because I don't call him a career person. He's a lawyer. She's a book editor. I don't know if that makes them career persons. It just makes them, this is what they do in their lives. It's not the only thing they do in their lives. But here's the seduction. We were attracted to the party. That's obvious. I mean, she just sees right through him. And she tells him, you're also alone. And I know it. I mean, she just comes right out. We're two adults, as they are. So boom, that's the seduction right there. She's just laid it out for him. She's just made it extremely easy. Let's get the check. Oh, there's more than checks to be gotten here. That ain't a check. That is a lot more than a check. Let's get it is what's going on here. That ain't a check. That's very clear what that is. And this scene caused such a big stir. And I'm going to try to shut up now so that you can relive this scene once again. Oh yes, the kitchen sink and the water. That will play a large role. It will be a recurring theme here in this film. This was a scene that was talked about so much. The sheer choreography of it, as you can see. Again, it's the director trying the hijinks and the comedy amidst the intense sex and the intense thrusting. And, you try to leaven a scene like that with something comedic, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think it just about works there. And then there's the stove. Ooh, that will play a role, won't it? The boiling pot on a stove. Ooh, yeah, we know where that's leading to. There's the foreshadowing, I think, that's very good in the film. I like that. I like the elements of the foreshadowing. I think it works very well for the movie. And the cinematography, I think, is very good too, because the shading and the camera angles and the tightness of the camera, the focus pull and the tightness of the shot, it reveals a lot about claustrophobia that Dan is constantly going to find himself in. And you look at the camera angles and the camera shots in particular and the framing of how boxed in he is. He's boxed in right now even, He's got Alex breathing right into his neck after they just had sex, and now he doesn't even have time to rest or go to sleep after sex, as more than a few men, I guess, tend to do. Fall asleep, right? After what you do, and then you ejaculate and you sometimes fall asleep. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen at times. And so any man listening to this who has had sex can attest to that. And so now they're dancing at a nightclub after sex, and now they're down in the meatpacking district. Oh, such a venerable district that is in New York. And it's not the same now as it was back in 1987 or 86 when they shot this. It's a different ball game now. It's all gentrified as the world is, it seems now. And the meatpacking district is still got some really good things going for it, though. And there's still some of those old buildings around if you look around there. The sepia tone, that's kind of a recurring theme for establishing where Alex lives in the meatpacking district. Isn't that interesting? The meatpacking district is where Alex lives. That kind of tells you everything you need to know, I think. Now, this elevator scene is elevator to the gallows, if you will. Elevator scene here also is an important one because it repeats later on. At the first moment, though, it's all about sex, and it's about a red light that you'll see, and you'll see an orange light or somewhat orangey red light, and this is a very passionate, erotic, some would say erotic, embrace, and the blue lighting and the commingling of bodies, and just they're going at it like savage animals, aren't they? Not a care in the world, even if someone happens to walk past and somehow not hear what's going on, but you can see that light's kind of an orange, deep orange light, Halloweenish. Then it will get red later on in another elevator scene, and I'll point that out, obviously. I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about. So they are having fun. Dan especially. It's just having a lot of fun here. And you see the elevator buttons being pressed, and your buttons are being pushed by the heat in the scene. I mean, at least back in 1987, it was really hot watching these scenes. But I don't know that they necessarily have that same heat to them these days. I don't know. If you've seen this film before, you may agree or disagree. If you've never seen this film before, first of all, you shouldn't be listening to this commentary. But second of all, you might find these scenes to be really supercharged and erotic and hot. And I love this transition scene. After they've had sex a third time, we don't see it this time, but obviously they've been having sex like rabbits. Oh, pun intended for later. That's the meatpacking district in the morning. That's part of it. That's a lovely shot. Dan walking back home. There's a bit of color and life there. Even though it's a brand new morning, you can see a bit of life again. And then here, it's kind of a monochromatic color scheme here now. He's coming back to the real world here. In some ways, what we just saw was a fantasy. The colors and the lights and the hot sex and all the rest of it. And now it's back to Earth for Dan Gallagher. Back to Earth. And it's kind of monochromatic and gray and vanilla. And, it's not really colorful, right? He's now got the cold reality of Beth leaving a message for him. And knowing that the guilt is there, he's just cheated on Beth like 4 different times, 3 or 4. And then you've got the contrast of the lovely countryside that's got color in it, all the color and brightness and somewhat naivete because Beth doesn't know what's happened yet. But you see this, there's a parody element to it, I think. And he's walking slowly and she's bounding in. Is Beth is playing Ann Archer plays her, and he's just cautiously walking, and he's lying. He's told his first lie, really his second, saying that he's had dinner with Bill. No, he didn't. The first lie was, of course, he cheated on Beth. That's the first lie. Second lie is that he had dinner with Bill when he tells Beth that. So he's lied to Beth twice. She only knows about one of the lies, though, thus far. I like the way she says there's spaghetti sauce in the refrigerator. Well, there'll be spaghetti sauce, if I can talk. There will be spaghetti sauce in more than just the refrigerator by the time this film's over with. It's just the dog is exhausted and there's just this whole deal with the house. She seems like she's got, look, the red apples in her background there. And Beth is just so full of life and vim, and she's excited about what's happening. There's a house, there's this, there's that. Ellen wants a rabbit, an animal, and he's kind of, Dan's brushing it off. And he's just already boxed in. Look at the way he's standing in the framing the door there. He's breathing, he's kind of like, phew, thank goodness that's over. And now he gets a phone call. And we see Glenn Close in wearing all white. This time it's a white bathrobe or something to the effect of with the white walls. So they're both now in this post-coital period, right? They've both had sex a number of times, and now they've now reverted back to the real world, and now they're engaging in the real world of the afterglow. The afterglow is faded, the honeymoon is over, and now they're dealing with each other as real adults, right? Because yes, they are adults when they are having sex, and we are all adults, right? But some of us don't behave like that. But you know, we have our intimate relationships, we have sex with whomever we're having sex with, hopefully someone of age, I would hope. And you're having sex with them, and then you have the real world afterwards, right? And the real world, even though you're having sex in the real world, then you communicate with each other after the non-verbals, and sometimes there are plenty of verbals during sex. But this moment here is the negotiation period and now the persuasion period. It's the second time already that the Glenn Close character has persuaded Dan, the Michael Douglas character, to go on this adventure, do something that maybe either out of his comfort zone or something that he is in kind of always wanted to do, which is perhaps to cheat. I don't know. But she's now pulled him out of his comfort zone. He's used to being the one in charge, working on his legal briefs, literally, lack of a better word, pun intended. And she said, no, don't work on the legal briefs. Come out here with me. Come to Central Park with me. You can bring the dog too. And he has brought the dog. And he's brought a trick up his sleeve here. I think this is the first moment that I think people in the audience might suggest or might realize that Dan is also a piece of garbage. It's bad enough he's already cheated. Now he's joking about here in a foreshadowing moment for the end of the movie. Bathtub scene, right? And it's going to be role reversal. And this is the first lie that Alex tells. Not this one, because this isn't a lie, because her father did die of a heart attack. That's definitely the truth. So she starts with the truth, and then just when she has told Dan the truth, she laughs off the truth, and tells a lie, and says, oh, no, my dad, he's alive and well and living in Phoenix. And it's like, no, he is as dead as a doornail. But we'll find out later that he is, right? That's the post-Central Park shot. I mean, it's interesting because Alex's apartment is down in the meatpacking district, but the shot of what looks like Central Park and the river there, the Hudson River, or wherever that is, I don't even know. That's in New York, but it's interesting that that shot was put in there. I don't know if that was the proper transition shot or not, but look, it works pretty much, I guess, when you think about it all. I guess there was no bridge better than that one to put, but there we go. We're now at the apartment, and it's interesting because I don't know if it's in this scene. It may well be this scene or another scene that may already have happened, that Glenn Close's character says that she is a good cook. She loves animals. She's a good cook. She said that, I think, earlier. And she loves animals, and yeah, she's a good cook, all right. I mean, we know what kind of cook she is here, but we really know what kind of cook she is later with an animal, right? So we know that. So there's this hokey sense of humor, to say the least, this kind of perverse sense of humor that James Dearden and Adrian Lyne have about some of the things that go on in the film. You know, this humor that's kind of a bit gallows humor, I think, in some ways. But there's this animalistic theme, right? The rabbit that comes later, the dog, and these two people here who have been going at it like animals. They've been really, and that's what it is like for a lot of us early on with sex with someone brand new, in a relationship, in your marriage, at the beginning of your marriage. Although, of course, that can continue to spice itself up depending on how creative and imaginative and not tired you are, right, of each other. You can really have an expansive sex life. It doesn't matter that you've been together 50 years or 2 minutes. But these two people, and you see the way that Glenn Close drinks the wine there, and she's listening to the part of Madame Butterfly, right? That Dan's character, Dan has talked about being a moment where he was terrified. But these two people, like, there's this animalistic kingdom that goes on, right? It's these two people, screwing like, fucking like rabbits and rugrats and, whatever, like they're just all over each other. And that is how it often is, right? When you're doing this at first with someone new, when you're having sex with someone new, and when you're having sex with your partner for the first time, and or your spouse or your significant other, it's all electric, and it can stay that way. It really can. These two people are trying to navigate what might be uncomfortable for them. It's not uncomfortable for Alex so much. It's much more so about Dan. But the movie is telling you to feel more for Dan than for Alex, and not to feel for them in the same amount. Because really, it's not Alex's fault that Dan chose to cheat on his spouse. It's Dan's fault. And between the two of them, the bigger horror in the scene is really Dan. But the film doesn't play that way. And I think the male sensibilities, or the sexist sensibilities, or the misogynistic sensibilities pull the white male director, in the direction of Dan. At least that's what it appears to be to me. And I think much of the audience back in 1987 had a field day with all of this. Because it's kind of like the man saying, well, I screw around whenever I want, but I don't have to pay the consequences of it. But you do, woman, you do. But I think Alex plays somewhat as the inner conscience of Dan. I know that sounds really hard to believe. But when you think about it, because Alex as a character is such a cardboard cutout, and it's really disingenuous what I think the filmmaker's done to her. Had it not been for the excellent performance of Glenn Close, I mean, this film would really be even worse. But I think because the character is almost an imaginary one in some ways, in the conscience of Dan, and you'll see that more concretely later. I'm not saying that she's a figment of his imagination, but she's really his conscience in a really perverse way. She's a human being on her own level, in her own right, obviously, but she's the conscience that nags at him. I hate to use that word because that's very sexist as well. But she lets him know, you're not going to get away with this, buddy. Especially in the 1980s. What? And here's just a tease of that. There's a kind of really savage way that she goes at him. And clearly we all know that the Alex character is a cardboard cutout and has some challenges of her own, right? There are issues there, but they never get resolved. They never get addressed. They never even get brought up, really. And she's a character that gets scorned and pitied by the audience. Scorned, actually, by the audience. Pitied by Dan. Pitied by Beth eventually, and then eventually scorned and condemned by everybody, including Dan and Beth and you, the audience. But that's all the filmmaker's doing, because I think Glenn Close did an outstanding job here. I think she should have won the Oscar for this. Again, the character is woefully underwritten. It's horrible how badly the character's written, if at all written. And Glenn Close fills in the gaps so well. And still the character is pretty darn bad, but not because of Glenn Close's excellent work. Moonstruck, Cher won for the Oscar in this film year, the year after, 1988, but the film year 87 for her role. And I did not think that Cher should have won, but that's just me. I think Glenn Close should have won for her role as Alex Forrest. So just when things are calm, and there's this rhythmic period throughout this movie where things appear calm, and then out of the idyllic calmness comes this really horror and terror and terrifying moment. And so We're going to see episode 1 of that right here now. Brace yourself. Oh my gosh. I mean, the horror. The horror. It's. Oh gosh, there's the kitchen sink again. There's the running water. I told you that the kitchen sink and the running water would be a recurring theme throughout Fatal Attraction, and there it is again. Oh gosh, this is unmitigated horror, and I think the heartbeat of the film's horror so overmatches and overwhelms everything else that it is impossible not to look at Fatal Attraction as some kind of cartoon exercise. I know that sounds extremely harsh. And this is coming from someone who actually liked the film in 1987, while I also disliked it. But I like it perhaps even less now than I did in 1987. But that's not to say that there aren't some things filmmaking wise that I do admire, like the window there and the rain and the water that's on the other side of that window pane. And you will notice that in other scenes, you see a close up there of the rain falling outside, that the rain always seems to fall after some dramatic event has happened in this film. You will see it later on, and I will point it out again to you. After some real melodramatic, hyperdramatic, horrific event happens, the rain falls. And it's this cleansing and purifying of an atmosphere that has been drenched with tension and horror and dread and violence. And you see Glenn Close's character, Alex, there, kind of just trying to resume her life. And, it's difficult, right? After you've done this to yourself, this act of self-harm. It's a cry for help, but the movie dismisses that cry and uses it instead as a moment to villainize and demonize, I think, the Glenn Close character. And I don't think that the film should have had that kind of treatment. I get it, it's a thriller, but I think it's a thriller that makes Alex the whipping girl, if you will, the butt of every really bad, horrific, quote unquote, joke. And the metaphor for the person who can't fight back, the oppressed class of individual who is made fun of at the cocktail party, or is, if not in the cocktail party, is joked about, in quotes, or talked about, or deride, or there's a measure of derision and scorn about that person who cannot even get into that cocktail party of the elite. But the film does have this Richter scale, as I think I'm trying to allude to now, where it's calm and then the needle shoots up to terror and then it comes back down again. And then there's a few bumps and a few suspenseful moments and some red herrings, and then boom, the needle ratchets up again, aftershock, and then comes down. Then there's some more aftershocks, and then boom, the big one. And that big one comes, of course, at the end of the movie here in The Fatal Attraction. So the movie plays like this Richter scale of ups and downs. And again, I think is rather cartoonish at times, because I think the level of violence in consonance with or in correspondence with the rest of the movie is really outsized so as to be somewhat campy in some ways. And I think that undercuts the narrative of horror is lurking within, because it's lurked within in such an extreme way, and the way it gets manifested is so extreme that it can't be believed in some ways, and that you could make a case that a lot of this movie is playing inside the Dan character's head. That's not something that you've probably ever heard many critics or many people talk about before, but you could make that case, because I do think that the Glenn Close character is an extension of Dan's own conscience, at least when it really counts for him. I'm not saying that the film is all a dream, because it's not. And I'm not saying that this kind of film has not played out in real life, because manifestations of it have. There was a case called the Fatal Attraction case in New York around this time, or just around the time, or just after the time this movie came out. It happened on Long Island, actually, which is kind of not all that far away when you think about it from where this film was shot. Some of this film was shot in upstate New York. Some of it was shot in Manhattan, and Long Island is really an extension of Brooklyn. Brooklyn's an extension of Long Island. It's connected to Long Island, so it's all really one part of the island. And on Long Island, I believe it was Long Island, or it might have been in New Jersey, there was a teacher and a woman who had an affair together. And I forget whether it was a teacher or not, but it was a man and a woman had an affair, and it became a really high profile affair. It might have been Carolyn Warmus. Those of you who are from New York and of a certain age may well remember that time back in the 1980s, maybe the late 1980s, 88 or 87 or 89, the Carolyn Warmus case, where I believe she was the one who was shot, or the one who got shot. And it was someone who cheated. It was a remarkable case. And it was dubbed by the media the Fatal Attraction case. I'm not kidding you. It was called the Fatal Attraction case. The New York media, they jumped all over it. And it was Carolyn Warmus, who was a teacher, is a teacher, and she was convicted of murder for killing the spouse of her lover. So the lover was, the name of the lover was Paul Solomon, and Paul Solomon was married to Betty Jean Solomon. So Paul Solomon cheated on his spouse, Betty Jean, and cheated with Carolyn Warmus, who was 28 years old, 12 years younger than his own wife, his own spouse. I mentioned that to mention it, and you can imagine what some people might be thinking about the age and all of the other things, right? And how we think of age in a society, particularly when it comes to women, how we demonize women around age, how we absolutely make it so a minefield for them and for women, and it's horrible. I'm just giving you the facts. And Carolyn Warmus had an affair with Paul Solomon, and they were having this affair. He cheated on his spouse, and lo and behold, Carolyn Warmus kills Paul Solomon's wife. I mean, that happened in 1989. What, in 1989? And there you go. I don't think Paul Solomon ever was convicted of anything, but the point is that that's what happened, and it was dubbed the Fatal Attraction case. So anyway, that's some New York news, and it was in Westchester County. It wasn't on Long Island. Westchester County, where this film was shot. In fact, this very scene you're looking at with Ann Archer and Michael Douglas, and now the realtor, this is in Mount Kisco, New York, where this is shot, the best of my memory or my knowledge. And that's in Westchester County, or thereabouts. This is a very, and so the Carolyn Warmus case, the Fatal Attraction case, in Westchester County. I wonder if Carolyn Warmus and Paul Solomon and Betty Jean Solomon watched Fatal Attraction. Here's the vertigo moment, right? This is the Hitchcockian moment, the looking at the staircase, the shadows against the wall, walking up the staircase, the lighting. It's all there, right? It's all the Hitchcockian element, I think. Walking into this new den, and there we go. So, it's the new house. They want the new house in the suburbs. So they're looking at it, everything seems fine again, everything seems fine and dandy. And so Michael Douglas walks into his workplace, and you're in at work and you're in work mode, right? Offices now these days, they don't even really exist anymore. I mean, the offices do exist, but a lot of people now are working from home, or their office is them traveling all over the world. That's their office. The office is the airplane that they're flying in to set up a business deal, or to set up a meeting, or to hash out strategy, or whatever it is. And there are people who don't work in offices. They work in grocery stores, and they're very vulnerable. We've had a pandemic, and we've had all these things that have happened, and it's really a lot of things have changed the nature of the way work is done, and people fall in love at work. They have sex off work or at work if there's no one in the office. These things still happen, right? They've always happened, and even if it's consensual, if it involves someone who's a supervisor, that's sexual harassment, even if both people consent. But this here is not a case of sexual harassment. This is the case of a cheating ass lawyer who, the lawyer, what a metaphor, huh? To have a lawyer be the one who's that is just typical tongue in cheek. And you see the pencils there next to the pictures of Ann Archer, and Glenn Close is sitting there in the black coat next to all of that. That is not an accident, the way that's framed, the production design, Mel Bourne. And look at those pencils all sticking up really sharp, right next to the wife, next to the spouse, if you will. And it's this hidden, but not so blatantly hidden, not so subtle look at what Glenn Close's character's ambitions are, There's just not knives sticking upward, a knife blade sticking upward out of that canister that she's sitting next to. It's only pencils right now. But you may as well envision knives sticking upward, with the blade sticking upward out of there. But there's the persistence again from Alex, right? She's trying to persuade him again. Oh, tickets to Madame Butterfly. Oh, come on. She's trying to persuade him again. It's this very alluring persuasiveness that can happen when you are involved, whether it's an affair or whether it's not an affair. And you're being persuaded. You have to be able to be strong enough to say no. I'm particularly talking to men, but you have to be strong enough to say no. Sometimes it's not easy. It's not easy. But you have to, especially if you're married. Especially if you're married. But we know that for men and women, for people, the temptation is stronger. And there are reasons that people cheat. Sometimes there are very good reasons why. But I am not here to judge any of that. I am here to judge this movie. But sometimes not favorably. Sometimes favorably, but a lot of times not. You can do audio commentaries that take some constructive criticism about the movie and sometimes not. And a movie that has some flaws, and a movie that I think has a few good moments, but mostly makes the Glenn Close character, the Alex character, really a tableau to throw tomatoes and a lot worse at. Say like rocks, kind of like you're stoning her to death before she even gets stoned, before the end of the movie. And I'm not talking stoned as in I'm drugged out, but stoned as in throwing rocks at, as is done in some societies on this planet to women and girls who have been raped, by the way. They're the ones that get stoned, or who have gone off and committed adultery, or far, far less. This is a time in the movie where, for the first time, there is a clear invitation to empathize with Alex, the Glenn Close character, because she's sitting alone. At least I empathize with her here. She's very lonely. She's sad. The music accentuates that sadness and manipulates it, and the on and off switch. And it's this combination of, is she crazy or is she sad? What predominates more to you as an audience member? Her being sad or her being supposedly crazy? The symbolic switching on and off of the light there suggests it, right? If the light were just off or on, one of those two things, and it just stayed that way, then you'd be able to, I think, as an audience, hopefully cue in more to her. Here's the Hitchcock element again, the staircases and the angles. And this is where we start to see Dan get boxed in again. The claustrophobia. Fred Gwynne there on the right hand side, the late great one, may he rest in eternal peace. Fred Gwynne. And he's so much taller than Michael Douglas. He's about 6'8". He was 6'8" or so in real life. He was rather tall, 6'6" or so. And you can see how the height differential's made up here by the tricks and the camera and all the rest of it, and then they look like they're the same height. But it's the dwarfing, excuse me for saying that, about Michael Douglas's character, of his character, that illustrates that the world is now he's in deep doo-doo with everything. And you can see again the height differential. And how he's blown smoke there, Fred Gwynne blowing smoke into the face of Michael Douglas. It's a nice touch there because it's kind of like another way of saying claustrophobia. There you go. Choke on that. The pressure of a big case. He's got smoke inhalation, and now he's got a woman that he cheated with who is going, "Hey, buddy, I'm over here. What are you doing? How you doing? How you doing?" To quote Wendy Williams. And you see those pencils now, they are out. And they are more than jagged edges. By the way, Adrian Lyne, I think, directed Jagged Edge, if I remember correctly. And Glenn Close starred in that. And that film came out about a year or so, I think, before this one did. Actually, I think it may have been 1984, 85. So it came out about 2 or 3 years before. See, he's already feeling the heat. And he should be, though. Here's another moment, though. It seems claustrophobic, but it's not. It's a moment of release. And it's the contrast here now. The image that's being pushed to us is a very sensual Anne Archer. And is she ever here? She is very sensual. The camera's focusing on the erogenous parts of her, perhaps. The shoulders, the neck, the collarbones. Obviously her chest, her breasts, her neck, all of these places that are erogenous zones for us, or for many of us. And it's a moment of transition, but it's also a moment, I think, that lets Dan off the hook, because he has just tried to dispatch, if you will, via phone call of Alex, and now Dan is now being given a reprieve with the very woman he has cheated on and betrayed, which is Beth. Beth has been this devoted spouse, devoted partner to him. And what has he done? He's thrown that out the window. And he knows it here, the guilty look. Gosh, Anne Archer looks really good there. And it's not because she doesn't have very many clothes on. Obviously, she's very beautiful and physically attractive, at least to some of us. But it's her face, it's this light in her, those eyes of hers. And, she really feels very beautiful and very sexy. There are women who, there's a certain aspect, again, I'm a man saying this, so listen to me, right? But there are women who feel very sexy and beautiful at certain moments. And many moments. Sometimes not in some moments, but many times in many other moments. Sometimes when pregnant, sometimes in many instances, it doesn't have to be pregnancy, it could be any. And if you are someone who who is with a woman who, or anybody, but particularly in this case, a woman who feels sexy and feels sexy around you or in any situation, whether you're there or not, that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. There's this, the racist joke, the racist jab again at Asians, and then the two white female spouses laughing at the white men who are behaving in a racist way, and it's kind of the reinforcement of it. And they're around a dinner table, and at Thanksgiving in the United States, there are many times that these things happen with a cross-section of white families in the country, and someone at that dinner table, whether it's an uncle or an aunt, a grandfather, grandmother, will say something racist, and either nobody will say something, in many cases no one will say anything, or someone will speak up. And I really hope now that more of the people who actually speak up and confront that racist uncle or aunt do speak up and say something, and don't let that moment pass. They certainly let it pass in this movie. Oh, look at that super close up there of Ann Archer. This time the camera's slightly off tilt, right? So, off kilter. And look at the look on his face. And look at the claustrophobia here. See the framing? Beth boxed in there in the window frame. And again, the close up of Beth and the close up of Dan. It's as if Glenn Close is just surveying them right here, you know? It just seems that way to me. So what you've got here now are two people and a moment at 2:13 in the early morning, and there's the black telephone that's going to ring. And here comes another lie, right? Dan's going to lie again here. And he's going to say Richards. Well, we all know it's not Richards, but of course, he hasn't told Beth yet that he's cheated on her, so he's going to have to lie, right? Again. Well, he doesn't have to lie, but he did. I wonder if anyone has had any real world experience of stalking. Because women are stalked a lot, right? And men can be stalked as well and have been. I personally have had that happen to me as a man, as a straight man. I have personally had that happen to me. And it didn't last for very long. But it did happen. And I know what it is. I know what that's like. I really do. But not to the level of what I think a lot of women have experienced. It's unnerving when it happens, but women experience this every day. And yet, of course, this film turns that on its head and has the woman stalking the man. And it's not to say that that doesn't happen. It certainly does happen. Don't get me wrong. It does happen in life, in real life. But it's far more often the other way around. Far more often. Temporary restraining orders and all that, and a lot of those do not work, have been brought, a billion of them, against men who stalk women, who constantly run after women, constantly follow women and commit violence against them. So this is a film that completely ignores that and reverses the roles, right? And as they go through the subway here, and this is actually at Rockefeller Plaza, there's Rockefeller Center. This is the 47-50th Street Rockefeller Center, Rockefeller Plaza Station, Rockefeller Center Station, on the, I think it's now the B as in Bravo, F as in Frank trains, among others who run there on the IND line or the IRT line or whatever in New York City. And here's the moment of the power play, right? The white straight male patriarchy part where the straight white man is telling the white woman, the straight white woman, that you have to, we can take care of this for you, Really, I hate to be crude, but that's really the truth, right? And he didn't wear any condom, right? No condoms for him. He made assumptions about her and her morals. And now when she wants to carry a child to term, because he's just been told that by Alex has just told him that she's pregnant, he now wants to now take control of her body and tell her, well, I'll take care of it. I'll pay for it. It's like there's no discussion there. There's no discussion. There's this auto assumption by the man in this position, in this point of this case, in this situation. And we've had Supreme Court cases on these things, in the past. We've had Supreme Court cases on laws in states that are giving carte blanche to bounty hunters to do whatever they want. Anybody that helps a woman have her own personal autonomy. That shows you that that's a society that we are living in that's extremely dangerous. It's a society that is totalitarian and not good for society. All of the things we know about Alex are tied into all the things that she reacts to in Dan, and not things that we know about Alex independently and of her own accord or agency. We are being constantly told about things, but it's all in relation to what Dan does. When she says, well, it's the last chance I have to have a child. Well, we never heard that from her prior to this moment, right? And If we had heard that at the beginning, do you think Dan would have slept with her? Do you think Dan would have cheated? I don't know. How do we know that Dan hasn't cheated in the past? I mean, Dan's a piece of garbage in this movie. But the movie somehow tries to obfuscate that and it really focuses all the heat, as I think I alluded to earlier, on on Alex. Like Alex is the problem, not Dan, but Dan's the real problem here. I'm not absolving anything that Alex does. I'm not even saying that what she does is grounded in any reality because I think it's quite cartoonish and campy, quite frankly, a lot of it. But I like the way that Glenn Close has really played the character because she's given that character some integrity, even if the actions of the character, as scripted, don't have very much integrity at all, and play her to be this pantomime villain that I don't think that she deserves. But there you are. I didn't write the screenplay. Here is another violation by Dan. He's committed so many of them already. And this just the 1 hour mark of this film, and he's breaking in to her apartment. He's doing a B&E, and the camera here goes to the Hitchcockian staircase thing again here, and you see him, and he's gonna get that key, and it's still a breaking and entering. It's not his property. He enters it with the key, and he's running into the apartment, right? And so all of these acts, the key is being left up there. It's kind of this polite justification of him to go and do this, and he shouldn't be. And he's going in there, he's trying to find things in her apartment. This is an attorney, right? This is a lawyer. Not to say that lawyers don't do sleazy things, and I'm a lawyer myself, so not that I do sleazy things. I'm just saying, lawyers, we do know that some in our profession are not above board, and we do know that there are a sizable number in our profession that do not do us any great service at all, and I think one of them is, you're looking at one of them right now. Even in a fictional realm. And so he's looking through all of her things, It's kind of this invasion again. And he finds the truth, right, through his incorrect ways of breaking in and entering. Even because when you open a door, that's still a breaking if it's not your property, right? It's still a breaking in the legal definition of it. It's a breaking and entering. You're breaking the seal of the locked door, whether it's with a key or not. If it's not your place, it's a B&E. And if you have no permission to be there, it's a B&E, right? Breaking and entering. So it's burglary, right? And I think he takes some information from there. But the point is that, and with the committing of a crime, right? You have to steal something as well, but still, the B&E is there. And so he's found out that, of course, Alex's father is well and truly dead, right? And here's the claustrophobia. They're now in the law library. It's he and Jimmy, played by Stuart Pankin, who I first saw on HBO years ago, back in the 80s, actually. Very funny guy. I thought it was a nice casting touch by Risa Bramon and Billy Hopkins to put him in here as the trusted friend and confidant and co-worker. I think he balances something, it brings a levity to the very serious thing, play. And you just see a black man there. That's the only black person in the entire movie. Seriously. I don't think there's any other black person in the movie but the one guy, the law librarian guy who's trundling the books. That's what 1987 was, and I dare say it might still be like that right now for you. I mean, law libraries are kind of a thing of the past now because everything's on, all these legal search firm companies, and so it's all online now, isn't it? He's boxed in. Look at the camera creeping in on him. The books surround him. The shelves surround him. The walls are closing in. It's like a metaphorical walls are closing in. The facts, as alleged, are horrendous, and so is that man, Ed Koch. He passed away years ago. We went from the Nickelodeon TV moment at the beginning to the stun gun moment and a horrible mayor, and a nasty mayor of New York there, as you saw, and the stun gun trial, which was very famous in New York the police at the time using stun guns on black people and on people across the board, but particularly black people. And here's Glenn Close again. This time she's wearing black. The first time she was in that scene there in her bedroom, it was all white, including her robe. Now she's in black, and boy, does she have some not so great things to say. See, she has to be wearing black to say that, right? She couldn't say that wearing the white outfit she wore. Oh, she means business now. She's wearing black. Bad. You know how that, again, the color coding of kind of this racist moment. It's baked into the cake, right? People aren't going to look at that as racist, but again, it's the way that we code and color code in this country and in others. Oh, isn't this going to be a lovely surprise? It seems so calm and peaceful. But, oops. He stops and turns around. And there's more than one voice in the room. The apartment has two people in it, aside from himself. And one of them is the woman he cheated with. This, to me, is the best scene in the movie. Even though there's something fantastically comical about it, it's riven with tension. And Anne Archer, I think, is excellent in the scene because she has to play off both of these people. And Glenn Close is enjoying herself as well. Oh, that grip. And that look. Ooh, and we see the scars on her wrist too. That's what we clue in on as well. Camera. Oh, at the Japanese place. There we go. The exercise book. Oh, yes, of course. I remember that. I love how Anne Archer just plays off of this. She totally. Oh, dear, oh dear. Yeah, it's a small world. It certainly is. Look at the two of them there. Oh, that is a great shot there of Anne Archer and Glenn Close. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh, so you're moving? Oh, you're going to a new place? Ooh. Oh, can I give you my phone number? Oh, that's what's coming. She's going to give the phone number out. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. It's all gone pear-shaped. Ooh. I was expecting a baby. Ooh, that's... Oh, it's so fraught with tension and awkwardness. And oh, thanks for showing me the apartment. Yeah. Oh, I'll give you our number. In 1987, I'm not so sure that a woman gives another woman their number like that. I don't know. Does a married couple do that? Because I don't think they do. And forgive me because this is going to be very sexist. And a woman who looks as alluring, as beautiful as she does, I don't know, quite frankly, that another woman, whether the other woman looks a certain way or not, is going to give their phone number out like that. Which, of course, is a conceit, right? It's a completely, and again, it's a male filmmaker and a male writer who have done that. And I don't think, and again, I could be completely wrong and off tracks here. I don't think a woman would do that. I don't think a woman would do that. I don't think a man would do that either. I don't think a person would do that. Give out. Well, it depends. It depends. I don't know. But I could be wrong. And now they're back in the meatpacking district. And look at the sepia tone there. That's the anthem. It looks like Hades. It looks like the gates of hell that he's now entering, right? It looks just like that. The cinematography suggests that. And it's almost all black there. Look at that claustrophobia. Look at that. Oh boy. Now some words will be had here. This is a guy that's terrified now, and this is a woman who is justified right now. I mean, I don't think that the Alex character is out of joint here at all. She's totally within her rights to put this on him. It's not even a putting anything. It's, hey, dude, you just effed around here. You screwed around here, mate. And, you got to face up to this. We're in this together. I'm pregnant and you're just going to walk away? She's doing something that our society doesn't do, right? Or our society likes to say that a woman shouldn't do, which is to challenge the patriarchy of a heterosexual white man, because that's what it is. It's white male hetero patriarchy, right? And any person that operates toward upholding that is going to be given some props most of the time. Anyone who, by definition, isn't white, male, and straight, and probably a bit well off, is not going to be given very much time of day. And just what you just heard Alex say, I just want a little respect. But the film doesn't give her any, much less Dan. And then look at the violence. So now he's had sex with her. Now he's threatening her life. And he has just rammed her up against a wall. And I want to know, we are just about an hour and 10 minutes or so into the film. How did the violence escalate so quickly between these two people? How did Alex get so violent? And how did Dan get so violent? I know it's a movie, but movies aren't just only ever movies, are they? Of course they're not. Movies aren't just movies, right? There's always other things going on. There's politics. There's all these other things I talked about before. A movie is never just only a movie. Again, the idyllic moment where something dramatic happens that defines the horror, the suspense, the possibility, or the preview, or the tension, the possible tension the tension that leads to possible horror. And you see the funny moment here. He almost drops the blooming thing on his own foot, much less the mover's foot. And boom, the tight shot on the phone, and he breathes a huge sigh of relief. Oh, it's only Martha, my secretary. It's not that woman that I've been screwing with. It's not her. But again, all this idyllic setup, look at all the white walls and the new place. It's all nice, it's all decorated. And, again, it's this Richter scale thing. This is after the aftershock has happened. And there it's calm again. And then you're going to get an aftershock again before too long. Again, this film showcases Anne Archer as the homebody. And again, and there's their rabbit. Oh, dear. Oh boy. But I mean, it's not to demonize the Anne Archer character at all. There is honor in staying home and taking care of children, and more men are doing that these days. That was something that probably didn't happen very much in 1987, but I can tell you, I know for a fact with people it happens now. It does happen now, right? A lot more men work from home. A lot more men stay home and are stay-home dads. They may not be working, but they are working, and the work is taking care of their children. And the spouse may be at work. The wife may be at work, the partner may be at work, the spouse may be at work, while you as the man are home taking care of your kids. There's honor in that. There's nothing wrong with that. You should be taking care of your children. Here's the red light now. You see, this is the matchup from the earlier elevator moment when I talked to you about how it was an amberish, orangey, Halloweenish type light. Now it's red. It's red alert here. And you see the elevator movement this time around. And Glenn Close is not on the elevator this time having sex with Michael Douglas. This time she is watching Michael Douglas go up the elevator by himself. And there's that red light now, again. And then the rabbit, the foreshadow. And here is Glenn Close, all in black. And the way she just walks away like that, ruefully, well, not ruefully, but wickedly, like, I'm out of here. Right? And she is seeing what's going on, right? And he is now completely lost himself. He's in silhouette. He's lost who he is, right? He has cheated. He has had the woman he's cheated with come to his apartment, and now he's boxed in again. Again, the cinematography shows you how he's boxed in. He's framed up in these bars, like, look here, see this? Fragments. He's now framed up in a tight vice like that through the glass of the car that is now destroyed. And we know who did that. Acid all over the car. It is a done deal. There's the rabbit. He knows exactly who did this. And so do we. And there's the rabbit. How many shots have we seen of that rabbit in the last minute and a half? You know that when a camera lingers on an object in a film, that object is going to come back big time later on. In 99.9% of movie history. That is Midtown Manhattan. I think that's near the United Nations, actually. That may be the United Nations building in the background, or it may not be. It may be kind of Midtownish instead of near the United Nations. But the point is that that's an Avis. I don't think Avis exists anymore as a rental car place. If it does, it's not in as many places as it used to be in. And there is, of course, Alex following Dan. And there's nothing like a claustrophobic movie or a claustrophobic atmosphere in a movie, because now look at that. She's truncated through the rearview mirror, and there is Dan listening. He's about to listen to a tape. He knows who the tape is from, and you can see it right there. Play me. Oh, the old cassette. Remember those from back in the day? If you're of a certain age, you know cassettes. And you used to have a car that you just slide the cassette player, the cassette tape into, and it would just start playing. And now here he goes. He slides it right in. Boom. Plays it. Here we go. And you can hear her. So now I think I said earlier that she, in some ways, in a really twisted and perverse way, is an extension of his own conscience, is his conscience. And I think it's best illustrated here. That is best illustrated here. And then amplified by the shot of her as she is literally probably right behind him, following him all the way back to his home, the new home he's moved into. Oh, would you like to have our phone number? Would you like to have our address? Would you like to live in the attic? I mean, see, he is now really boxed in. And the camera work here is really good, because the white light there behind is surely belonging to the car that Alex is driving. And Dan, now enveloped in darkness, is completely, as they drive through a tunnel or it's nighttime. It's nighttime there. He can't escape now. And her consciousness and his, he can't escape her now. And why should he? He can't escape. Really, it's about him dealing with what he's done. But he's not going to be accountable for that, is he now? We've seen that movie too. So she's following him, and she really is in his head now. Alex is in Dan's head, and literally now, not the way that she was on his head earlier, if you will. Forgive my crudeness. In the elevator scene at the beginning of the movie, she now is in his head in a different way, right? And it's not sexual. I think there's a kind of, I don't know, do you as a viewer think that she's jabbing him there when she goes, I bet you don't even like girls? Is there a homophobic slant or attack there? You could interpret it that way. Or it could be interpreted as, I bet you don't even like girls generally. As a man, you don't like girls because look at the way you treated women like me. And although she's not a girl, but if she had said, I bet you don't even like women, you could interpret that a lot of ways. I would interpret it more as he's a misogynist because he is, clearly. And look at the way he's discarded Glenn Close. And so I don't know. I will leave that obviously up to you, the listener and viewer, to determine whether or not you think the line that Glenn Close's character speaks is one that kind of takes a homophobic attack bent, you know what I mean? You know, impression. That shot you just saw was a framing again of Dan, kind of separated from the family there, with the window frame that kind of cut in between him and Ann Archer and their child. You know, I love that cinematography too. You know, that moment there where you saw the window frame kind of come between Dan on the left side of the picture at that moment, and the right side of the picture, Ann Archer and Ellen Hamilton Lanson. Here again, I just see this as a Hitchcockian thing, the tall shadow, the silhouette, the staircase a la Vertigo, the silhouetting a la Vertigo. And again, you know, he can't shake this voice of a woman who he has wronged. He clearly has wronged two women. He's wronged, obviously, Beth, and he totally has wronged Alex. And now he is really, again, the claustrophobia here, because you're going to see an arm come into the picture, and that arm belongs to Beth. And so you've got Beth now coming in, and again, you know, this refrain about, I bet you don't like girls, you know, and it's a moment of reckoning for him, and I think at least in an honest moment without the violence of physical violence. There's this, I think this is the one time where Dan really gets called out for who he is. He is gutless. He is spineless. But the movie doesn't editorialize that way. The movie uses the character to say that. The movie itself, overarchingly, does not condemn Dan. And here comes the reassuring figure of Beth. Oh, she's hugging and loving. Oh, isn't she lovely? Isn't she lovely? Isn't... Stevie Wonder. Yeah, I love how he walks in here to this big white door in the archway. Kind of dwarfs him again here. And you'll notice again that here, dwarfed again, forgive me for using that term. The police inspector he speaks to is sitting up on a table. So it's kind of this dwarf, this kind of belittling of Dan. And Dan now is sitting at the, on a seat at a desk, I guess, or whatever. And so he's kind of looking up at the police inspector. And it's a representation, again, of how small Dan is in the world now, and how he is completely boxed in and snowed under through his own fault. You're going to see a reversal of this coming up later on, where you're going to see the police inspector there sitting down while Dan is going to be the one sitting on a table or sitting up, standing up. And so that reversal is going to happen shortly. But you're going to hear from the police inspector going, well, you know, he made his bed, right? So he's going to have to lie in it. And here it is. And look at that quiet moment where Dan is kind of trying to reconcile all that. And he's saying that it's his client, but the police inspector is a police inspector. He knows he's talking about himself. He knows Dan's talking about himself. There's the moments of, the idyllic calm and, oh, isn't it lovely? It's like this, again, it's like the carpet gets yanked from under you, right? It's the pastoral countryside. you know? Yeah, upstate New York, the leaves turn a different color at a time of the year. And it's lovely if you go through the New York State Thruway, and as you drive on it, you see the changing of leaves. Go every fall, every autumn. Come on. It's a lovely thing. I forget, around September or so into October, you see the changing of the leaves. They change color. And it's just so lovely. It is. It's really a beautiful thing. You should drive up there if you haven't ever. Next time you're in New York, drive on the New York State Thruway going north, and it's just absolutely, during the months of September and October, it's absolutely incredible. It really is, especially mid-September onwards. From mid-September on, say through mid to late October, it's stunning. And look at the one person wearing black there is Dan. And he is the danger in this movie. There's two horrors in the movie, but the movie only focuses on one. The movie focuses on the cartoonish horror, not on the real horror, right? That is the Michael Douglas character, because he's the one that set all this in motion. He's a dirtbag character. Dan is a dirtbag, right? He may have cheated before, he may not have. And the point is that I can judge that and call him a dirtbag. And the movie shows you that he is, but the movie doesn't indict him as such. The movie kind of walks along with him on this journey, and the audience kind of go along with him too. And the fact of the matter is that he's the real horror in this movie. The cartoonish horror is the Glenn Close character. She's more of the pantomime villain that people can just kind of project all of their stuff onto, all their own indiscretions and infidelities and hatreds, and their misogynistic ones too, and their racist hatreds and anything else. She's the character that gets all projected on by us as an audience, perhaps, and certainly by the filmmakers, because I don't think Adrian Lyne gives her enough credit. The writing doesn't, and so Glenn Close has to really play that character and play her so well just to bring her up to par. And even then, because the director has ultimate control, I think that the Alex character is just completely left twisting in the wind by Adrian Lyne. But if it's not for Glenn Close's excellent work in this movie, we totally dismiss Glenn Close's character completely as a laughingstock. And I don't, even though the film treats her, quite frankly, a lot like that. The real horror is the Dan Gallagher character, played by Michael Douglas. But he's not treated that way. But there's that pot, there's that stove again. I told you that was going to come back. I think you knew that though, didn't you? Oh dear. You come back to your home, and look what happens. I didn't remember leaving the fire on, the stove. Let me see what this is. There's the prolonged ratcheting up of tension. Oh my goodness me. The horror. That is not good. Whitey's gone. Oh my goodness, isn't that a metaphor? My goodness gracious me. A white rabbit. I kind of think back to Grace Slick, and Jefferson Airplane. White rabbit. But Whitey's gone. I mean, whoa. If that's not a metaphor, I don't know what is. And, boom. Done. That is the end of that. And, wow. Rabbit stew. Anybody for rabbit stew? I know, that's not cool. It's not. It's horrible. Here we go again. Again, this is after the horror of an event happens. The rain comes, right? So here is Dan, and here is Beth. And there's Dan looking out, and you see the rain again. See? It happened before, as I said earlier, with the rain after the self-harming episode by Alex in her apartment at the early part of the movie. And now, after the bunny boiling situation, there's the rain again. Kind of this cleansing. Kind of a lowering of the Richter scale back down. The aftershock has kind of worn off a little bit, and now there is some harsh truth to be faced and addressed. And it's going to be done right now. The truth comes out. Yeah, I mean, this is the only other scene actually where I think that Dan's behavior is being called out, and it's the other prominent woman in the film, played by Anna Archer so well. I think Anna Archer is so good here, and throughout the movie she has been and was. And she's got to really find these moments here. And Dan, again, he's wearing all black. He's the villain here, not because he's wearing black. I know movies like to make it like that, but it's a metaphor for film. I get it. But when someone tells you, if your spouse tells you, I'm so sorry, the last thing I ever wanted to do is hurt you, and they tell you this after they've cheated on you, you have every right to get up and slap them in the face. And, Beth does not do that here. Well, she kind of comes close to doing that here, because it's not the cheating that gets her so upset, as painful as that is, the betrayal of their marriage vows. You know what the real painful thing is? It's this right here. Wow. And there is Ellen Hamilton Latson, and you know what happens there, right? The story behind this moment with the young child there is that this was shot separately, and the director took the toy away from her that she's holding there, and she started to cry, and so it was filmed. It was all on camera. It was filmed, and then the director put the toy back in her arms and filmed it, so you could see that as if she was reacting to the two of her parents there arguing. But it really was the director who took the toy away from her and let her, suffer like that. And that was on film. God, the things that directors do to get moments to happen, oh God, put their actors under all kinds of hell. And hopefully the actor gets well paid for it. We know that's not true for the vast majority of actors in the world. But that moment where Beth confronts Dan is the only other moment in the movie where Dan is facing up to, or at least hearing from, women who have said, look, you are just a piece of garbage, mate. But it happens all too briefly in the movie, right? Whether it's the audio tape that Dan listens to in the car from Alex, or whether it is the moment that you just saw a few minutes ago where Beth has just absolutely given him what for, and absolutely rightly so. Those are very brief episodes in this movie. So he doesn't get to live with it too long. And it's always the muscular, horrific effects that again, I hate to use that word. I'm going to try to use a different word. Overwhelm the narrative of what male responsibility is supposed to be, and what responsibility is supposed to be, period, male, female, or otherwise, or trans, whomever the human being is. There's got to be responsibility somewhere. And I know passion and all those things overtake that a lot. And we, as adults, do things, right? And I don't want to judge that. I'm just looking at the way this film assesses those things and puts it on a tableau of horror, and dresses it up in a very kind of antiseptic, vanilla type, upper middle class white family household, quote unquote traditional family household, and then puts this horror schlock that overwhelms it. It's kind of dressed up in this, I don't know, not Abercrombie and Fitch, but Pottery Barn chic, right? But then it's just interrupted by a whole slice of Hammer horror, or something like that. A whole slice of Wes Craven and the slasher movies, and or directors I can think of way before Wes Craven ever came along, right? That that do this and do it so powerfully and unremittingly. again, there's this attempt to give Dan some redemption. Damn, yeah, Dan, damn. It's kind of the same thing, but it's an attempt to give Dan some redemption here. He's trying to be the family man again. After he's you know fucked around on his spouse, on his wife, and Beth's husband is trying everything to get back in the good graces of this family that he has ruined. And the film, again, only takes a fleeting glance at this. A fleeting glance. It's kind of the in-between moments as an aside. And then the referendum is always placed on Alex. And so that's the thing that a lot of people who didn't like the movie, particularly back in 1987, really were upset about. And that it was indicting single women. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that. I definitely agree. And I don't know if it was indicting career women as much. I mean, I think it was indicting women, period. Women who would want to exercise their own autonomy and who would dare challenge a straight white man who has had sex with someone not his spouse, who has not used birth control, by the way. And this is in the era of HIV/AIDS, which is still here and very much a serious problem across the globe, right? But there are treatments for it for those who can afford it. There are treatments for HIV and AIDS. There isn't a cure as of the time I've recorded this, but I hope there is someday, and I hope that when you're listening to this, there is a cure for HIV/AIDS. So here's someone in 1987 or 86 when it was filmed, having sex, his character having sex in the 1980s with no condom. I know people still do this, right? With a stranger. So you're having sex with a stranger and no condom on you. Whoa, you are a smart person, aren't you? And I know people go, well, it's better without a condom on. It's better. But is it better to have an STD? I mean, come on now. I know I'm talking about these things way. But the point is that those things get introduced in the movie and then they get dumped like they do in so many movies that lack heart and lack courage to deal with what's real. And they would rather put movies in a carnival circus, literally like this, right? The fun fair, and have the outsized cardboard villain come in while the two seemingly well-adjusted adults, played by Ann Archer and Michael Douglas, are, look at this, Ann Archer at 6s and 7s, and really, it should be Michael Douglas running around trying to find out what's happened to the daughter that he's placed in jeopardy directly through his own selfish actions. Shouldn't be Ann Archer's business to do that, right? Beth shouldn't be the one running around. It should be Dan. Because Dan's put his own daughter in this situation where a woman like this, who really has a lot of her own issues, obviously, and her own challenges, is now kidnapping Beth and Dan's daughter. And so Dan and Beth's daughter is now being given the ride of her life. Talk about a thrill ride. And now you've got Beth, who cannot see straight as she drives through the streets. Can you imagine not knowing where your child is, where your son or daughter is, where your child is? It's the most helpless feeling and the most terrifying feeling, isn't it? To imagine that. Just imagine that. I don't know if you can, but imagine that your child is missing and you just don't know where to start and you're just driving all over creation. And that's what Beth is doing here as this roller coaster ride comes to a really abrupt end. And then there's the car at the distance. You'll see this again, but it will be a nighttime shot. It's the same shot in the daytime, but it's going to be exactly the same shot at night. Oh dear. This is kind of a subtle, forgive me for saying this, sexual thing going on there. Not between the two of them, but it's a sexual thing for, look at that. And she kind of has a contemptuous look on it. Let me explain what I just meant by that. Is, oh, give me a kiss. It's kind of like this way of getting to Ann Archer's character, right? It's as if, and I'm going to get really bizarre here, as if It's kind of an extension of Anne Archer kissing her on the cheek, because of course the Beth character has given birth to Ellen, and so it's kind of like this proxy. I know it's bizarre to say that, but I think, again, I liked it, would advocate the opinion that somehow Glenn Close is not an apparition, but a product of the consciousness of the Dan character. She is his conscience, and so maybe in Dan's mind, if he's thinking about her in his mind, he's kind of put this really bizarre imaginative play on it all, and that somehow Ellen in his nightmare is Beth, but Beth is Ellen kissing Alex, right? I mean, I know it's preposterous. You've probably never heard anybody say that before, but I'm saying it. So there. And again, the film attempts to redeem the Dan character, again, Michael Douglas's character, because now he's the one that should be in that hospital bed, quite frankly, not Anne Archer. And it would have been interesting to see if Anne Archer's character would have visited him. I think she would have. And now Dan is on the rampage now. He's on the warpath, and he's on a vengeance tour. And here we are, the mantra and the anthem of the sepia-toned, meat-packing district, and the shadow, the Hitchcockian shadow that comes. And here he comes, he's going to go right into the apartment. Watch him just run in there. There we go, boom. And he's coming again to the apartment without the permission of the person he's coming to. And look at the angle tilt there of the camera. Some major violence is going to happen here, and there's not going to be a single word spoken between Dan and Alex. You will briefly see the stunt persons here. Certainly you will see the stunt man. There is a stunt woman as well for the Glenn Close character. Both of them here in stunt, and you will see in a couple of quick flashes the stunt man for the Michael Douglas character, and you might be able to tell that there's a stunt woman there for the Glenn Close character, and you can probably briefly see there as the glass smashes against the face of the Michael Douglas character, the stuntman. And you can see again here. But right there. And my goodness me. This violence, this level of violence that's escalated between the two of them. I mean, I know that there's something primal about your child being missing and what you would want to do to someone who would dare try to kidnap or kill your child. And so I guess that's the representation that's being made here. But it's being done in a very exploitive way, in my opinion, in my view. A very exploitative way, right? It's a justification over a revenge, not so much that Beth is in the hospital, but because all along Dan's trying to get rid of, for lack of a better term, trying to get rid of Alex, and he can't, right? So the more he fails in that venture, the more things happen, and it's all of his own doing. And now he's just trying to take it out on her because it's his real failing. He should be beating himself up. And then that knife comes out, and that knife was left there to be picked up, and it's going to be left again. And you know the motifs of these things. A knife gets placed on the counter, and you know it's going to come into play again. How did these two people get to this? And how did they get there so quickly? And to me, that is a function of script, and how the script does not do justice to these characters. Quite frankly, certainly to the Glenn Close character. But look at this. How did they get so violent already? I'm not trying to sound naive. I may be sounding naive to you. But how did it get to be so violent? Not a word has been spoken between the two of them. Not a word. I don't even know if they're actually looking at each other, if these scenes are being shot separately. They may well be. or they may not be. We don't know. I don't know. But they may not be. They may be shot at different times and then spliced together. We don't see any. We don't see them together here. We just see them here in these separate shots. But there isn't a shot of them in an establishing shot or a two shot of them in the same frame. So, for all intents and purposes, they could have been shot weeks apart, days apart. They could have been shot miles apart. Now we see now, right? They are now, Michael Douglas now is revealing himself. And okay, the pretense is over. It's not a hypothetical client, it's me. Watch this now. Again, here's the role reversal. The police inspector sits down at the desk, and it's Michael Douglas that's standing up and leaning up against something or sitting on something that's higher up. So now he's trying to take the ascendancy here. Look, you see? He's higher up in the frame than the police inspector is. And a few minutes ago, you saw the reverse of that. It was the inspector who was standing up or leaning up against something, and it was the Michael Douglas character, Dan, who was sitting down. So the role reversal is here right now. And there he goes. He is going to take matters in his own hands, you know, obviously here. And here again, the calm, the foggy atmosphere, the trees. It's as if the film is doing everything to justify whatever it is that Dan does, or the film plays cleanup on aisle 5 to every wrong thing that Dan does. Now it's this rehabilitation of him again. He's now at home, the light on his face, everything's bright. All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful. And so you see it, right? It's this rehabilitation, this attempt by the filmmaker to rehabilitate a character who is such a piece of filth named Dan Gallagher. And yet the film plays him up. We'll give you another chance. We'll give you another mulligan. And here now is more running water. This time it's not in a sink. It's in a bloomin' bathtub. And look at those close-ups. Ooh. Look at those close-ups. Ooh. Look at that water. Ooh. Close up. Right in your face. And now we see, right, what's going to happen here. And nobody knows where Alex is at the moment. Nobody. Nobody knows. Oh, we don't know where she is. Where is she? Are you putting a revolving tail on her? Is an all points bulletin out for her? Oh, look at the gun. Oh, dear. What are you doing with guns in a home with a child? What are you doing with a gun in your home? Oh, that won't stop you. But, you know, they don't know where she is. Nobody knows where Alex is. And we see the staircase again. And it's all so easy, right? Because you know that the film can't just end here. Because if it does, it's not really much of anything. Is it now? Now, I will say this. You may not know this. You may know this. Originally, the film's ending was the Glenn Close character ends her own life. Because, of course, there have been episodes in the film, the self-harming episode at the beginning, that kind of led you down that path. And the original ending was that she would end her own life. And there's actually footage, because that ending was actually shot, then it was reshot as what you're going to see here in a few minutes. And that original ending tested so poorly with audiences, which is why they reshot the ending of the movie to what it is now, which ended up being a massive hit with audiences. But yet I think the ending here is more of a disingenuous ending than actually the original one. The original one is obviously so freaking downbeat. But it's the truer one, because that's typically what you might expect given the arc of this character. And the character doesn't have much of an arc at all, does she? In Alex, I mean, the screenwriter, Mr. Dearden, did such a poor job in portraying her, quite frankly. I can't believe it was even nominated for adapted screenplay, because that character just, and it's not just the character, it's just the way the film's pacing goes, and that's to do with the editing too. Now you see the water again coming out of the faucet and the tap. There's always something, right? There's a recurring theme. Is she in the house or not, ladies and gentlemen and people everywhere? Is she in the house? Well, if you've seen the movie before, you know the answer to that. And all the tight close-ups on the locks, and the chains. No, and the bathtub almost full of water. And you know what's happening here, if you've seen the movie before. I'm going to say very little because the most difficult scene to watch for me of this entire movie is the scene that is upcoming in moments. And so if you've not seen this movie before, you are in for a real grotesque next few minutes and a very violent one. So I want to warn you, if you have seen the movie before, well, you know what's coming. And boy, is it terrifying. This is a scene that's so difficult to watch, and everything is white, all of it's white, and you see the blade and the knife and what Glenn Close is going to be doing to herself with that knife. And oh dear, it's just unbearable. And when it unfolds, and I'll just leave it at that. Michael Douglas just kind of parades around thinking that everything's nice and cool. And you see the red amber light there in his own home. And you know that the danger is very, very close indeed. I think that this movie really does, in some ways, make things at the end here really intense, but also very dishonest. And Michael Douglas is the one that's created all this danger, and he's kind of just standing there in this glowing red light of danger and kind of oblivious to his own horror that he created. It seems to go on forever, and now all hell is broken loose. And he only now just realizes that oh my gosh, that the woman he's put in danger is in danger. And from his own indiscretions, the indiscretion is the lightest word to use there. And my goodness gracious me, this gets incredibly violent. It already has been, and it's just going to even ratchet up some more in the horror schlocky style. Oh boy, she is going to town on him with that knife. I don't know how she didn't just absolutely maraudingly murder him there. But again, this is what got the cheers when he kicks her, and ooh, if she strikes him there, he dies. And this is all the schlocky stuff that I think spoils the film. Now, I know this is one of the big sensations of the movie that propelled it with audiences. They loved this, which I think is kind of sad in a way. Hey, I will admit to you that I cheered when she was shot at the end in 1987. I'm not going to pretend I wasn't part of that. But I reflected on it, and even as I was cheering, I didn't feel comfortable, Oh, look at that. The eyes. Oh, dear. Oh, and all that cut down her thigh. It's horrible, isn't it? And we know that this is the classic. There's kind of a psycho element to this, the slasher, and you think it's calm and okay, and again, a moment of peace for a moment, and good heavens, he thinks it's over. Oh boy. This is the role reversal from the earlier scene in Central Park, of course, that you will have recognized when Dan pretends to be dead and then he comes back to life. And now here's the reversal of that. Oh, and by the way, it's Ann Archer who pulls out the gun and kills Glenn Close's character. And that's the thing, right? And that's when the audience really cheered. And, it's kind of sad. It's kind of like, the moment where the patriarchy gets defended, the cheating husband gets defended. And she's not pulling out the gun to shoot Dan because he's the symbol of what? The family breadwinning and the wealth and all the rest of it, metaphorically and actually perhaps. So she's not going to pull out the gun at him. She's going to pull it out at the woman who was lonely and, had some challenges in her life and just wanted love and, probably never really got it from the places she should have. And a guy who, is taking advantage of being a white straight man or a man who is straight who will cheat if he has an opportunity. Not every man, of course, but, that phrase is kind of hackneyed, isn't it? And then they hug at the end and that's it. The family that kills together stays together. That's the moral of the story from Fatal Attraction, as far as I'm concerned. And there's a shot of it to prove it, because there's a shot of the happy family and the end. The family that kills together stays together. That's the moral of the story of Fatal Attraction. Not the infidelity of the Michael Douglas character. There's an Adrian Lyne film, right? Not the infidelity and the cheating of Dan, but the fact that the woman he cheated with wanted more and we need to get rid of her. But you can keep cheating. I don't know if Dan cheats again in this story. If this story were to go on again beyond the film that you've just watched, do you think Dan cheats again? Do you think Beth cheats? Do you think Beth ever cheated? Do you think Dan had cheated before he cheated with Alex? Do you think that Beth ever confronts Dan again about the cheating? Or are they both going to move on as if nothing happened? Adrian Lyne directed a movie, I think in 1998 or in 2000. It was released in one of those 2 years, called Unfaithful. And he actually gets into the element of infidelity a little bit deeper, and a little bit more nuanced. And I think that film in some ways is quite disturbing, far more disturbing than this one. That movie starred Richard Gere and Diane Lane and Olivier Martinez. It's called Unfaithful. Unfaithful. I urge you to see that one, actually, especially after you've seen Fatal Attraction, which you have now just watched. And the lovely music score from Maurice Jarre plays on so lovely. The end credits orchestrations by Maurice Jarre, really lovely. It's a beautiful closing credit score, really good. It really does symbolize the movie. The tension strings, the dun dun dun, the beauty of the score. I can't even place all the instruments at the minute, but it's just so beautiful. And I just really want you to think about not just the movie, but also, the movie is deeply flawed in some ways. It really is. The Glenn Close character really fought to get this movie done the way that the character should have been represented, and she fought well and valiantly and really deserved something of an Oscar for this. She really did. She was not happy with the way the film was portraying her character at all, but her performance more than made up for it. And even though the character still is poorly written, is a cardboard cutout, it's a very misogynistic portrayal, a sexist portrayal, and Dan never is held to account for anything. And that's where this movie totally lets the Michael Douglas character, who is a dirtbag, off the hook. But I want to thank you for not letting me off the hook. Thank you for giving me your undivided attention for these last 2 hours. I am Omar Moore. This has been the Fatal Attraction audio commentary by yours truly. I am a film critic, and I can be found on Twitter at the Popcorn REEL. Thank you very much for your time, and be well.